The first time I saw the money, it wasn't much, just a few hundred naira. But I could already hear it calling my name. That was the moment I knew I was in too deep, and there was no going back. My name is Chijioke, but people call me Chiji. I grew up in the heart of Lagos, the kind of place where survival is a daily struggle. My father worked as a mechanic, and my mother sold food at a small roadside stall. They did their best to make sure my siblings and I never went hungry, but it was tough. I always dreamed of something more. I wanted a better life. A life where I didn't have to worry about how much rice to buy or whether my shoes would last another month. So, I did what many young men in Lagos do, I looked for ways to make quick money. It started when I met Tony. He was older than me, maybe in his early 30s, and he had the kind of confidence that made people trust him right away. He was a well-known figure in our area, always wearing sharp clothes and driving nice cars. Everyone said Tony was the man to know if you wanted to make money fast. And me? I was desperate. One evening, Tony pulled me aside after I had been working on a friend's car in his workshop. "Chiji," he said, "you've got potential. You just need the right push. I have a deal that will change your life." I listened, my heart racing. I didn't care what the deal was. All I heard was the word life-changing, and I was hooked. "The money is simple," Tony continued. "All you need to do is deliver a small package to a guy in a nearby neighborhood. You won't have to do anything else. You'll just get paid for showing up." How does that sound? It sounded too easy. But Tony had been around long enough to know how to make things sound convincing. I agreed without asking too many questions. All I needed was money. That night, he handed me a small envelope. I felt its weight in my hand, so light, but somehow so important. Tony didn't say much more. Just, don't open it. Don't ask questions. Deliver it, and the rest is yours. I didn't understand what I was doing, but I didn't care. All I could think about was the cash I'd get once the job was done. I walked through the streets of Lagos, the envelope burning in my pocket, my mind racing. When I arrived at the house where I was supposed to drop it off, the door opened before I could even knock. A tall man with a scar on his face stood there. He looked like trouble. "Tony sent you?" he asked. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes. I'm here to deliver." He didn't take the envelope right away. He stared at me for a few seconds, as though trying to read me. Then, without a word, he took it and closed the door behind him. I stood there, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But nothing did. I walked back to my motorcycle, the sound of the engine revving in my ears as I made my way home. The next day, I met Tony again. He handed me a thick envelope, the kind that makes your heart skip a beat when you feel the weight of it in your hands. "Here's your payment," he said. "You did good." I opened the envelope, and there it was, cash. 1,000 naira notes, crisp and clean. I couldn't believe it. In one night, I had earned more than I would have working for a whole month. My heart raced. This was it. I was going to make it. But as the days passed, something about it didn't sit right. I started to feel the weight of what I had done. I didn't know who the man was that I had delivered the package to, and I didn't want to know. But the money kept coming. Every time Tony had a job for me, I took it without asking questions. I was becoming part of something bigger, and I didn't know how to get out. Then, one evening, Tony called me again. "Chiji, I need you to do something for me. It's urgent." I should have said no. But I didn't. He gave me another package. This time, it was bigger and heavier. I didn't ask what was inside, but I could tell it was something serious. My hands shook as I held it. I knew deep down that I was in too deep, but I also knew that I had no choice. I went to the address Tony gave me. This time, when I knocked on the door, it wasn't just the man with the scar. There were 2 other men standing behind him. They didn't say a word as they took the package from me. I could feel their eyes on me, sizing me up. It was like they were waiting for something. Before I could turn to leave, the man with the scar spoke. "Tony trusts you," he said. "But you need to be careful. Not everyone you deliver to is as trustworthy." I didn't respond. I just nodded and walked away, my heart pounding. I felt the walls closing in on me. What had I gotten myself into? That night, something happened that would change everything. Tony was arrested. I heard it on the news. The police had raided his place. They found everything. Drugs. Weapons. Illegal money laundering operations. And the worst part. I had been part of it all along, moving packages without even knowing what was inside them. I thought about the times I'd gone to deliver packages, the way I'd been so careless. I never asked questions. I never stopped to think about what I was doing. I had let money blind me to everything else. Now, I was caught in something much bigger than me. The police came to my door the next morning. They asked questions, but I didn't have any answers. They wanted to know about Tony, about the deliveries I had made. I could hear my heart thumping in my chest as they took me down to the station. It didn't take long for them to piece everything together. I was just a small player in Tony's operation. But that didn't make it any better. I spent days in a holding cell, wondering if I would ever get out. My family didn't know what to think. They were ashamed of me. They couldn't understand why I had thrown my future away for the love of money. Eventually, I was released on bail, but the damage was done. I couldn't go back to the life I once knew. People whispered about me on the street. The shame followed me everywhere. Now, when I look back on it all, I realize how foolish I was. I thought I could escape poverty by taking shortcuts, but all I did was dig myself deeper into a hole. The money was never worth it. No amount of cash could erase the guilt and fear that haunted me every day. I learned the hard way that the love of money isn't worth losing your soul. I lost my peace, my dignity, and my place in my own community. And for what? A few thousand naira. It wasn't worth it. But I can't change what happened. All I can do now is try to rebuild my life, one small step at a time, and pray that someday I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror without feeling ashamed. Money never buys happiness. It only buys regret. And I've learned that lesson far too well.